The galaxy had known about humans for 63 standard cycles, and in all that time, nobody could figure them out. Every species that met them walked away confused. Every council meeting that discussed them ended with more questions than answers. The humans were, by all scientific measurements, the most terrifying creatures to ever achieve spaceflight. Yet they behaved like the gentlest beings in existence. Earth was classified as a Category 9 death world, the highest and most dangerous rating the Galactic Council had ever assigned to any planet. The gravity alone was enough to crush most species. The atmosphere contained a gas called oxygen that was literally combustible. The temperature swings could kill unprepared visitors within hours. Predators roamed every continent, every ocean, every ecosystem. Diseases evolved faster than medicine could track. Natural disasters struck with regularity that seemed almost purposeful. And from this nightmare world came humans. They should have been monsters. They should have conquered everything they touched. Their biology made them nearly unstoppable. They could survive injuries that would kill 3 other species combined. They could function without sleep for days. They healed from wounds at remarkable speeds. Their endurance exceeded any known sentient being. They could eat substances that were toxic to everyone else. But instead of conquering, they helped Ambassador Katie Morrison, had spent 12 years representing humanity on Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. She was a small woman by human standards, with dark hair and calm brown eyes. She smiled often, which had taken other species a long time to understand. When humans showed their teeth, it was usually friendly. On this particular morning, Katie stood before the full assembly of the council chamber, presenting a humanitarian aid proposal. The Villani Collective, a peaceful species of 6-limbed herbivores, had suffered 3 consecutive years of agricultural failure. Their people were starving. Their government had no solutions. So humanity offered one. The aid package includes 17 cargo ships of emergency food supplies, Katie explained, her voice steady and warm. Additionally, our agricultural division has developed new grain variants specifically designed for Villani soil conditions. These crops are drought-resistant and high-yield. We will send 200 specialists to help with planting and cultivation techniques. The chamber was silent. 300 delegates from across the galaxy watched her with various expressions of confusion, suspicion, and disbelief. High Counselor Zethron finally spoke. He was a Crethion, an insectoid species that stood nearly 3 meters tall. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed his translator's output. And what does humanity want in return, Ambassador Morrison? Katie's smile remained gentle. Nothing, Counselor. This is humanitarian aid, not a trade agreement. Nothing, Zethron repeated, as if the word was foreign to him. You will feed an entire species, transform their agriculture. Send your own people to work on their world and you ask for nothing in return. That is correct. Why? It was the question every species asked eventually. Katie had answered it hundreds of times in her career, and she gave the same response she always did, because they need help, and we can provide it. That is reason enough for us. The Sindari delegate, a serpentine creature from a merchant species, hissed something into his translator. There must be a long-term strategy, an investment in future political capital. Some calculation we cannot see. There is no hidden calculation, Katie said. We simply believe that helping others is the right thing to do. The chamber erupted in confused murmuring. Most species did not operate this way. Most species understood the universe as a competition for resources, territory, and power. Kindness without expectation of return was not just unusual, it was incomprehensible. Far from Nexus Prime, Commander Daniel Price sat in his captain's chair aboard the starship, Horizon's Edge. His vessel was one of humanity's most advanced warships, armed with weapons that could crack a small moon. He was currently using it to escort a convoy of medical supplies to a plague-stricken world. Commander, his executive officer said, "We have received word that the medical supplies have arrived safely. The Torvan government sends their gratitude." Daniel nodded. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes that had seen too much of the galaxy's suffering. "Good. Set course for the Kepler system." I understand there is a refugee situation developing. Lieutenant Nina Vasquez raised an eyebrow. Sir, that is 3 days out of our patrol route. Then we had better get moving. Nina smiled slightly. She had served under Daniel for 5 years and had never seen him refuse a call for help. None of them had. This was simply what human ships did. They helped the weapon systems on the horizon's edge had not been fired in actual combat for over 8 years. The medical bay, by contrast, treated patients almost daily. Daniel often joked that his ship was the galaxy's most heavily armed ambulance. What the galaxy did not know, what humanity never advertised, was exactly how powerful those weapons were. The horizon's edge carried firepower that would have stunned military analysts from any other species. Its defensive systems could withstand bombardments that would destroy entire fleets. Its crew trained constantly for combat scenarios they hoped would never happen. But they were prepared. Always prepared. Back on Nexus Prime, the Villani delegate approached Katie after the session ended. Her name was Tethra, and she moved with the slow grace of her herbivore species. Ambassador Morrison, Tethra said, her voice soft and melodic through the translator, my people do not understand why humans help us. But we are grateful. Your kindness has saved millions of lives. Katie took Tethra's manipulator limb in a gentle handshake, a gesture she had taught many alien friends. We do not help because we expect gratitude, Tethra. We help because we remember what it was like to struggle alone. Our history is full of suffering, and we swore long ago that we would ease suffering wherever we found it. Your world made you strong, Tethra observed. Strong enough to conquer anyone. Yet you choose peace. Strength means nothing if you only use it to hurt others, Katie replied. True strength is having power and choosing to use it for good. Tethra considered this for a long moment. Then she made the Villani gesture of deep respect, touching her forehead to her upper limbs. Perhaps that is why you confuse us all so much, she said. We cannot imagine having your power. We certainly cannot imagine choosing not to use it. Katie watched Tethra leave, her smile fading slightly. There was something the galaxy never asked, something that lingered beneath every discussion of human kindness. The question nobody wanted to consider: what would happen if humanity ever stopped choosing peace? The answer was something Katie hoped the galaxy would never learn, because she knew her species. She knew what they were capable of. She knew that beneath every friendly smile and helpful gesture was 60,000 years of survival instinct forged on the deadliest world in known space. Humans were kind because they chose to be kind, not because they had to be, not because they were incapable of anything else, and choices, as every human knew, could always change. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, forces were moving that would soon put that choice to the ultimate test. But for now, humanity continued to smile, continued to help, continued to confuse every species they encountered with their impossible gentleness. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The Veluxi Dominion existed at the edge of civilized space, where laws meant nothing and power meant everything. They were a reptilian species with cold eyes and colder hearts. Their empire was small, their technology was outdated, and their military was weak compared to the major powers. But they had found a different way to prosper. They traded in suffering. For over a century, Veluxi raiders had attacked frontier colonies and undefended ships. They captured sentient beings from dozens of species and sold them into slavery across the unregulated sectors. Their clients were criminals, warlords, and twisted collectors who paid fortunes for exotic specimens. The Galactic Council condemned them in official statements, but never acted. The Veluxi were too far away, too insignificant, too much trouble to deal with. So the raids continued. The suffering continued. The Veluxi grew rich on the misery of others. Fleet Commander Krathvel stood on the bridge of his attack cruiser, watching his tactical display with satisfaction. His scouts had found something special. A human passenger liner, traveling through an unpatrolled sector with minimal escort. 3,000 civilians, including a large number of children on some kind of educational trip. Human specimens were rare and valuable. Their biological resilience made them perfect for heavy labor. Their appearance was considered exotic by certain collectors, and their emotional responses to captivity were said to be fascinating to observe. Move the fleet into attack position, Crathful ordered. Disable their engines and communications first. I want minimal damage to the cargo. The Veluxi fleet consisted of 12 attack cruisers, more than enough to handle a civilian liner. They dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Surrounding the human ship before it could react, Captain Maria Santos was enjoying a quiet evening on the bridge of the Starward Dream when the alarms began screaming. She was a veteran spacer with 30 years of experience, and she recognized immediately what was happening. "Raiders," she said, her voice remarkably calm. "All hands, emergency stations. Get the passengers to the interior compartments." Her communications officer worked frantically at his console. "Captain, they are jamming our signals." "I am trying to punch through. Keep trying. Send the distress call on every frequency we have." The first shot struck the Starward Dream's engine section, carefully targeted to disable without destroying. Maria watched her tactical display as the Veluxi ships closed in. She had no weapons capable of fighting back. She had no escort ships coming to help. She had nothing but 3,000 civilians and a duty to protect them. "Seal the blast doors to engineering," she ordered. "Lock down the cargo sections. Make them fight for every corridor." The distress call went out, a brief burst of data before the communications array was destroyed. Maria did not know if anyone had received it. She did not know if help would come. She only knew that she would not surrender her passengers without a fight. The Veluxi. Boarding parties cut through the hull at multiple points. They moved through the corridors in groups, stunning civilians with shock weapons and dragging them toward the loading bays. The crew fought back with whatever they had, fire extinguishers and tools and bare hands. But they were outmatched. Maria made her last stand on the bridge. A maintenance tool in her hand and 2 unconscious Veluxi at her feet. When they finally overwhelmed her, she was still fighting. The raid lasted for hours. When it ended, the Veluxi had captured over 2,000 humans. Among them were 212 children, including the entire school expedition group. The rest were dead or hiding in sealed compartments the raiders could not breach in time. Crathful examined his prize manifest with satisfaction. The children would bring excellent prices. Human young were especially rare, especially valuable. He ordered his fleet to withdraw to Veluxi space, leaving the crippled liner drifting in the void. The rescue ships arrived 36 hours later. The human cruiser, Resolute, responding to the distress call, found the Starward Dream floating dead among the stars. Emergency teams boarded the vessel and found horrors that would haunt them forever. Bodies in the corridors. Blood on the walls. Signs of desperate resistance in every section, and in the sealed engineering compartments, 187 survivors, including 43 children who had been hidden by quick-thinking crew members. The survivors told their stories. They described the Veluxi raiders, the systematic capture of passengers, the separation of children from parents. They described Captain Maria Santos fighting until the end, never surrendering, never giving up. The news reached Earth within hours. It spread across every human colony, every station, every ship within a day. The details were confirmed, verified, and broadcast to every corner of human civilization. 212 children. Taken, sold into slavery. For a long moment, humanity went completely silent. No official statements. No diplomatic communications. No public reactions at all. The galaxy watched, waiting to see what the humans would do. Admiral George Patterson received his orders aboard the command ship, Fury of Earth. He was 63 years old. A career military officer who had spent most of his life hoping he would never have to fight a real war. He read the message from the United Earth Parliament 3 times, making sure he understood every word. Admiral Patterson, the children of the Starward Dream are to be recovered. The Veluxi Dominion is to understand that this can never happen again. You are authorized to use whatever means necessary. No restrictions. No limitations. Godspeed. George looked up at his bridge crew. These were men and women who had trained for decades, who had maintained combat readiness through years of peace, who had always known this day might come. They waited for his orders with expressions of cold determination. Navigation, George said, his voice steady and quiet. Plot a course for Veluxy space. Maximum speed. Weapons, he continued. Begin combat preparations. Full load. All systems. Communications. Send a message to all ships in the fleet. Tell them we are done holding back. His executive officer, Commander Sam Torres, stepped closer. Sir, the Veluxy border fleet numbers over 200 ships. We have 17. George turned to face him. His eyes held something that Sam had never seen before. Something old and cold and infinitely patient. Sam, George said softly, you have never seen what our ships can actually do. None of us have. We have spent 63 years pretending to be less than we are, fighting with one hand behind our backs. Using a fraction of our true capabilities, he turned back to the view screen. Watching the stars begin to streak as the ship accelerated, that ends today. Today, the galaxy learns what happens when Deathworlders stop playing fair. The Fury of Earth leaped into hyperspace, followed by 16 other vessels. They carried no diplomats. They brought no aid packages. They had no interest in negotiation. They were coming for their children, and nothing in the galaxy was going to stop them. The Galactic Council received the reports with mild interest. 17 human warships were moving toward Veluxy territory at high speed. The diplomatic community assumed this meant negotiations were about to begin. Perhaps the humans would demand reparations. Perhaps they would threaten economic sanctions. Perhaps they would finally act like a normal species and use leverage to get what they wanted. Hi. Counselor Zethrin discussed the situation with his military advisors over morning meal. The Krethian view was that humanity was about to make a serious mistake. The Veluxy border fleet contains 231 combat vessels, his chief strategist reported. The humans bring 17. Even accounting for their technological advantages, the numbers are overwhelming. They will be forced to negotiate. Zethrin clicked his mandibles in agreement. The humans have always been reasonable. They will bluster, make demands, and eventually accept a diplomatic solution. They are too smart to throw away ships in a hopeless battle. He was wrong about everything. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Veluxy border territory. Directly in front of Border Station Keth 4, this was the largest Veluxy military installation in the region. Protected by the full strength of their border fleet. 231 warships, all crewed and combat-ready, faced the 17 approaching human vessels. Fleet Commander Vethril, the highest-ranking Veluxy officer in the sector, opened communications with what he assumed was a doomed enemy fleet. Human vessels, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and we may show mercy. Continue forward, and you will be destroyed. Admiral George Patterson's response was brief. We are here for our children. You have one chance to return them unharmed. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. Vethril laughed, a harsh rasping sound that his species made when amused. You threaten us? With 17 ships? Your arrogance will be your death, human. You misunderstand, George replied. I am not threatening you. I am informing you of what will happen. Return our children now, or face the consequences. You have 60 seconds to respond. Vethril cut the communication and ordered his fleet to attack. 231 ships began moving into assault formation, weapons charging, targeting systems locking onto the human vessels. What happened next became the most studied military engagement in galactic history. The human ships did not retreat. They did not attempt evasive maneuvers. They simply began firing weapons that the Veluxy had never seen before. Commander Rachel Park commanded the assault carrier Thunderchild, the largest vessel in the human fleet. She watched her tactical display with professional calm as her weapons officers began their work. Launch primary railgun batteries, she ordered. Target their command ships first. The railguns fired. They were electromagnetic acceleration systems that launched projectiles at 15% the speed of light. The Veluxy had never encountered anything like them. Their shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and conventional missiles, were useless against solid objects moving at such incredible velocities. The first Veloxy command ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next it was an expanding cloud of debris. 3 more ships followed in the next 10 seconds. Across the human fleet, similar weapons were engaging. Directed energy beams cut through Veloxy hulls like sunlight through fog. Electronic warfare systems overwhelmed enemy sensors, turning their targeting computers into useless noise. Missile salvos launched from human ships carried warheads that penetrated shields before detonating inside enemy vessels. Lieutenant Pito Conquo, Rachel's weapons officer, tracked his kill count with grim efficiency. 15 confirmed kills, Commander. 16, 17. All these years, he said quietly, we have been holding back. All these years, we had this capability and never used it. Rachel nodded, her eyes never leaving her display. We did not want to use it. There is a difference between capability and intention. We always hoped we would never need to show anyone what we could really do, and now they took our children. Now they learn. The battle lasted 14 minutes. When it ended, the entire Veloxy border fleet had been destroyed. 231 ships reduced to expanding debris fields and drifting wreckage. The human fleet had suffered minor damage to 3 vessels, mostly from debris impacts rather than enemy fire. Vethral's final transmission, recorded by automatic systems before his flagship disintegrated, was a single word repeated over and over. The translators rendered it as somewhere between impossible and nightmare. Admiral Patterson surveyed the aftermath with no satisfaction. This was not victory. This was necessity. These were not enemies he had wanted to fight. These were obstacles between him and 212 children. All ships form up, he ordered. We continue into Veloxy territory. Every installation, every base, every facility that might hold prisoners is to be searched. Rules of engagement remain the same. Anyone who surrenders is to be treated humanely. Anyone who resists is to be neutralized. Find our children. The fleet moved deeper into Veloxy space, unstoppable now that the border defenses had fallen. They ignored all communications from the Veloxy government, all offers of negotiation, all pleas for mercy. There would be time for talking later. First, there were children to rescue. Sergeant Lisa Dawson led her Marine squad through the corridors of a holding facility on the 3rd moon of Veloxy 7. Intelligence had indicated this location might hold human captives. Her squad moved with deadly precision, powered armor absorbing shots that would have killed unprotected soldiers. The Veloxy guards fought back with everything they had. It was not enough. Lisa's squad cleared the facility in 23 minutes, leaving a trail of unconscious and restrained enemies behind them. Orders were to minimize casualties where possible. Lisa followed orders, even when part of her wanted to do much worse. The holding cells were in the lower levels. Hundreds of cages holding beings from a dozen different species, all prisoners of Veloxy cruelty. Lisa ordered her squad to begin releasing them, providing medical attention where needed, coordinating evacuation with the ships in orbit. Then she reached the back section. The cages there were marked with special symbols. Her translator rendered them as premium specimens and high-value cargo. Inside those cages were 31 human children. They were scared. They were hurt. Some of them were crying. The youngest looked barely 5 years old. They stared at the armored figures approaching them with terror in their eyes, expecting more pain, more cruelty, more suffering. Lisa removed her helmet so they could see her face. She was crying too, though her voice remained steady. "It is okay," she said softly. "My name is Lisa. I am a soldier from Earth. We are here to take you home." The oldest child, a girl of maybe 12, stared at her with wide eyes. "You came for us. You actually came." Lisa knelt down to meet her gaze. "We will always come for you. Always. No matter how far. No matter how long. No matter what it costs. You are ours, and we protect what is ours." Behind her, her squad was already cutting through the cage locks. Medical teams were on their way down. Evacuation shuttles were standing by. The machinery of rescue was in motion, but for one moment, Lisa simply looked at those children and made them a silent promise. The people who did this would never hurt anyone again. The galaxy would learn that human children were not cargo. They were not specimens. They were not acceptable targets. They were everything. And humanity had just demonstrated exactly how far it would go to protect them. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any fleet could travel. The Veluxy Border Force, 231 warships, had been annihilated in 14 minutes by 17 human vessels. Military analysts from every major power watched the battle recordings with growing horror. Intelligence services scrambled to reassess their threat evaluations. Diplomatic offices drafted urgent memorandums to their governments. The humans had been hiding their true capabilities for 63 years. The gentle giants of the galaxy were something else entirely. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Zethron called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber was fuller than it had been in decades. Every species sending their highest-ranking representatives to discuss what was being called the Veluxy Crisis. "This changes everything," the Sindari delegate hissed. "We assumed the humans were powerful but restrained. We did not realize they were this powerful. Their restraint was not weakness. It was choice." "A choice they have now abandoned," Zethrin replied grimly. "The question is whether this is a temporary response or a permanent change in human behavior." Ambassador Katie Morrison requested the floor. The chamber fell silent as she stood. Every eye and sensor focused on the small human woman who represented the most dangerous species any of them had ever encountered. "I want to address your concerns directly," Katie said. "What you are witnessing is not a change in human nature. It is a response to an unforgivable act. The Veluxy took our children. They stole the most innocent among us and intended to sell them into slavery. This is the one line that cannot be crossed." "And when your children are recovered?" Zethrin asked. "What then?" "Then we will stop. We have no interest in conquest. We have no desire for territory or resources. We simply want our people back, and we want to ensure this never happens again." The Morvith delegate, an ancient being from the oldest civilization in known space, raised a manipulator limb. "Ambassador Morrison, my people have watched younger species rise and fall for millennia. We have seen conquerors claim peaceful intentions while building empires. Why should we believe humanity is different?" Katie met the Morvith's gaze directly. "Because if we wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would have done so 63 years ago. We had the capability then. We have greater capability now, but we chose to help instead. We chose to heal instead of harm, to build instead of destroy. That choice was real. It remains real. We are simply demonstrating what happens when someone forces us to make a different choice." The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. Every delegate was calculating, reassessing, wondering what this meant for their own species. Deep in Veluxy space, Admiral George Patterson's fleet had swept through system after system, destroying military targets and liberating prisoners. The Veluxy High Command attempted to rally their remaining forces at their homeworld, but it was too late. The human fleet was already approaching. The Veluxy government sent desperate messages to every major power, begging for assistance. They invoked ancient treaties, promised trade concessions, offered anything and everything for military support against the human advance. Every request was refused. The Krethian hegemony wanted no part of this fight. The Sindari trade guilds calculated that intervention would be economically disastrous. The Morvith Imperium simply stated that they did not interfere in the affairs of younger species. Nobody wanted to stand between humanity and its children. George Patterson received a transmission from the Morvith observation ship that had been shadowing his fleet. The Morvith did not offer assistance or condemnation. They simply asked a question. "Admiral Patterson, your species has demonstrated remarkable restraint for many generations. You possessed overwhelming military capability, but chose peaceful methods. We wish to understand why you have changed." George considered his response carefully. He knew the galaxy was listening. He knew that whatever he said would be analyzed, debated, and remembered for centuries. "We have not changed," he finally replied. "We have always been exactly what we are. We are a species that evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We survived because we learned to fight, to endure, to never give up no matter how bad things became. But we also learned something else. We learned that cooperation was more valuable than conflict. We learned that kindness built stronger bonds than fear. We learned that protecting the weak made everyone stronger. He paused, gathering his thoughts. For 63 years, we offered the galaxy our friendship. We gave aid without expectation. We defended those who could not defend themselves. We did this because we believed it was right, not because we were incapable of doing otherwise. Our kindness was never weakness. It was a choice. A deliberate, conscious choice made by a species that understood violence better than anyone. His voice hardened. The Veluxi took our children. They crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. They mistook our gentleness for inability, our compassion for softness. They were wrong. We are Deathworlders. We carry 60,000 years of survival instinct in our bones. We know how to fight. We know how to kill. We simply choose not to, most of the time. That choice is temporarily suspended. The Battle of Veluxi Prime was not a battle in any meaningful sense. It was a systematic dismantling of military capability. Human ships moved through the system with terrible precision, destroying every warship, every defense platform, every weapons installation. The Veluxi fleet fought with desperate courage. But courage meant nothing against technology. They could not match in tactics they could not counter. When the last Veluxi warship fell silent, George ordered his fleet to hold position. The planet below was defenseless. Its cities lay exposed. Billions of Veluxi civilians waited to see what the humans would do next. Medical ships began arriving. Supply vessels followed. Human aid workers descended to the surface, setting up distribution centers for food and medicine. Engineers began assessing damaged infrastructure, planning repairs that would help civilian populations. The Veluxi watched in stunned confusion. They had expected extinction. They received assistance. George addressed the Veluxi government directly, his transmission broadcast across the entire planet. Your military capability has been eliminated. You have no ability to threaten anyone ever again. But we are not here to conquer you. We are not here to rule you. We are here to rescue our people and to ensure this never happens again. He let those words sink in before continuing. You have a choice now. You can rebuild as a peaceful civilization. You can join the galactic community as productive members. If you choose this path, humanity will help you. We will provide aid, education, opportunity. We will treat you, as we treat all species, with kindness and respect. His expression hardened. Or you can attempt to return to your old ways. You can try to rebuild your military, resume your raids, continue your slave trade. If you choose this path, we will return. Not to conquer, not to rule. Simply to remind you that actions have consequences, and that some lines cannot be crossed without response. He leaned forward slightly. Choose carefully. We are giving you one chance. You will not get another. The Veluxi government capitulated within hours. They provided locations of all facilities holding human captives. They released detailed records of their slave trade operations. They surrendered unconditionally. One by one, the children were found. 212 young humans scattered across dozens of facilities throughout Veluxi space. Some were physically harmed. All were traumatized. But they were alive. Lisa Dawson was present when the last group was recovered from a hidden facility on a remote moon. 7 children, including a 6-year-old boy named Tommy, who had not spoken since his capture. When Tommy saw the human soldiers coming for him, something changed in his eyes. He looked at Lisa's face, at her tears, at the gentle way she reached for him. "You came," he whispered. "You really came." Lisa gathered him into her arms, holding him carefully, protecting him with everything she had. "We will always come," she promised. Always. Behind her, medics were treating the other children. Evacuation shuttles were standing by. The long journey home was about to begin. The galaxy watched and remembered. They remembered that humans were capable of terrible violence. But they also remembered that humans used that violence to rescue children, to protect the innocent, to punish those who hurt the defenseless. They remembered that even in war, humanity brought medical ships. They remembered that even in victory, humanity offered mercy. They remembered. And they understood, and they were very, very careful never to give humanity a reason to demonstrate those capabilities again. 3 standard months after the last child was recovered, the galaxy had changed in ways both obvious and subtle. Trade routes shifted. Diplomatic relationships realigned. Military doctrines across dozens of species were completely rewritten. Everyone remembered what had happened. Everyone drew their own lessons from it. High Counselor Zethron submitted a formal revision to the Galactic Council's species classification system. It was the first such revision in over 500 years, and it created an entirely new category that applied to only one species. The entry read, Restrained Apex Predator. Definition: a species possessing overwhelming capacity for violence that deliberately and consistently chooses. Alternative methods of interaction, the subcategory of Deathworld species. Current members, humanity. Special notation: not to be provoked under any circumstances. The classification was approved unanimously. Even species that had never encountered humans directly voted in favor. The recordings from the Veluxy campaign had spread everywhere. Everyone knew what humanity was capable of. Everyone knew what it took to unleash that capability, Ambassador. Katie Morrison returned to her post on Nexus Prime. Her first appearance before the full council drew the largest attendance in the Chamber's history. Every species wanted to hear what she would say, how she would explain or justify or apologize for what her people had done. Katie did none of those things. I know many of you are wondering if the humanity you thought you knew was a lie, she began. Standing alone in the center of the vast chamber, I understand that fear. I understand that confusion. So let me be absolutely clear. She paused, making eye contact with as many delegates as she could. We meant every act of kindness. Every offer of aid was genuine. Every gesture of peace was real. We are not predators pretending to be gentle. We are a people who chose gentleness despite being predators. There is an enormous difference. The Sundari delegate raised a manipulator limb. And how do we know you will not turn those weapons on us someday? How do we trust a species that can destroy fleets in minutes, but claims to desire peace? Katie's expression softened. You trust us the same way you always have. By watching what we do, not what we could do. We could have conquered the galaxy when we first achieved spaceflight. We chose to help instead. We could have destroyed the Veluxy completely. We chose to offer them reconstruction. Our capability has always exceeded our actions. That gap is what defines us. She took a deep breath before continuing. But I want to be honest about something. There are lines that cannot be crossed. When someone threatens our children, when someone hurts the most innocent among us, we respond with everything we have. This is not a threat. This is simply a fact about our species. We protect what we love without calculation, without restraint, without mercy for those who harm them. Wait. To recall with our wire with the wire Her people had received more human aid than any other species over the past decades. They knew humanity better than most. "We have always wondered why you helped us," she said, her voice soft and thoughtful through the translator. "We assumed there must be some hidden strategy, some long-term plan we could not perceive. Now we understand. You helped us because you could, because you believed it was right. And you've protected your young, because that is what you are." She performed the Villani gesture of deepest respect, touching her forehead to her manipulator limbs. "We are grateful that you choose to be kind. And we are grateful that you are capable of being otherwise, because it means your kindness is genuine. It is not weakness. It is strength expressed through compassion." Across the chamber, other delegates began making their own gestures of respect. Not all of them, but many. More than Katie had expected. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Understanding, perhaps, or appreciation. Far from Nexus Prime. Commander Daniel Price returned to his regular patrol routes aboard the Horizon's Edge. His ship's weapons systems went back into standby mode. His medical bay resumed treating injuries from mining accidents and agricultural mishaps. Life returned to normal. Or as normal as things could be after what had happened. Lieutenant Nina Vasquez found him in the observation lounge on evening, staring out at the stars with a cup of coffee cooling in his hands. "Think the galaxy learned anything?" she asked, settling into the chair beside him. Daniel considered the question for a long moment. "I think they learned what we have always known. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who does not want to fight. Because when they finally do, it means something has gone terribly wrong. And they will not stop until it is fixed. And humans never want to fight, but we are very good at it when we have no other choice." Nina nodded slowly. "Do you think we will have to do it again?" "I hope not. I spent my entire career hoping I would never have to use my ship for what it was designed to do. Now I have, and I wish I never had. But I would do it again in a heartbeat if someone threatened children. Any of our children. That is just who we are." On Earth, the children of the Starward Dream were recovering. Therapy programs, family reunification, careful reintegration into normal life. The youngest ones would barely remember what had happened. The older ones would carry scars forever. But they were home. They were safe. They were surrounded by people who loved them. Tommy, the 6-year-old boy who had stopped speaking during his captivity, said his first words 3 weeks after returning to Earth. He was playing in a garden with other children when he suddenly looked up at the blue sky and said, "They came for us." His mother, who had spent weeks wondering if she would ever hear his voice again, knelt beside him with tears streaming down her face. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "They came. They will always come," Tommy said with absolute certainty. "The soldiers told me. They said humans always come for their children. Always." In archives and databases across the galaxy, the story of the Veluxy incident was preserved for future generations. Every species told it differently, emphasizing different aspects, drawing different lessons. But certain elements remained consistent in every version. The humans were kind. The humans were generous. The humans were peaceful. For 63 years, they helped everyone they encountered without expectation of reward. Then someone took their children. And the humans showed the galaxy what Deathworlders were truly capable of when they stopped holding back. The lesson was simple, but profound. Human kindness was not a mask. Human peace was not a strategy. Human aid was not a manipulation. All of it was genuine, offered freely, with no ulterior motive. But beneath all that kindness was 60,000 years of survival instinct forged on the most dangerous planet in known space. Humans had evolved to protect their young against everything the universe could throw at them. They had built civilizations on a world that wanted them dead. They had conquered death itself and reached for the stars. That strength had always been there. It had simply been expressed through compassion instead of conquest, through aid instead of aggression, through friendship instead of force. The Veluxy had made the mistake of confusing choice with inability. They had assumed that because humans did not use their full strength, they did not possess it, they were wrong. And now across the galaxy, in every corner of known space, every species remembered the lesson. They remembered the gentle giants who built hospitals and sent relief convoys and never asked for anything in return. They remembered that those same gentle giants could destroy entire fleets when properly motivated. They remembered, and they were careful, and they treated humanity with the respect that such a species deserved. It was, after all, a tale every species remembered. A tale of kindness and capability, of choice and consequence, of a people who could have been monsters but chose to be friends instead, and a reminder that some choices, if forced, could always change. The humans resumed their humanitarian missions. The medical ships returned to their routes. The aid programs continued without interruption. Everything went back to the way it had been before. With one small difference. Now the galaxy understood exactly what they were dealing with. And that understanding made all the difference. The story ends not with war, but with peace. Not with conquest, but with cooperation. Not with fear, but with respect. The humans continued to smile, continued to help, continued to be exactly what they had always been. Kind, generous, peaceful, and absolutely, terrifyingly capable of being otherwise. A tale every species remembered, indeed.